The first splash of wine hit his shirt before anyone realized who he was. The restaurant fell silent for one long, shocked heartbeat, but not because they recognized him, and no one did. To them, he was just another tired-looking man in an old blazer. But in less than 3 hours, these same people would be sitting in a conference room praying for a signature from the mysterious CEO behind a $600 million acquisition. They had no idea he was standing right in front of them, dripping with the wine they had thrown at him just for fun. Armin Hale had never liked walking into a room as the owner. The moment people knew his name, their smiles changed, their voices changed, and suddenly the truth became a stranger to him. That's why he avoided big entrances, fancy clothes, and the entourage's staff always insisted he needed. Today, especially, he wanted anonymity. The merger meeting was at 4 p.m., and the restaurant across the street was the only place he could breathe before he walked into the storm. But he didn't expect that storm to begin here. Across the room sat 3 young executives from Mero Technology, the very company scheduled for the acquisition. Their laughter was already loud, half fueled by victory, half by the reckless confidence of men who believed the world rolled out carpets only for them. They didn't notice Armin, nor did they notice the weary server rushing between tables with shaking hands. When the server bumped into their table and dropped a glass near them, one of the executives snapped. Without warning, he picked up a full glass of wine and threw it not at the server, but at Armin, who happened to be walking past at the exact unlucky moment. The red wine bloomed across Armin's chest, spreading like an insult meant to stain deeper than fabric. The server froze. The restaurant gasped. The executives laughed. Armin didn't. He simply stood there, eyes steady, expression unreadably a man used to storms far harsher than this one. The server apologized over and over, voice trembling, trying to wipe the wine from Armin's shirt. Armin gently stopped him. "It's all right," he said softly. "Accidents happen." His voice was calm, almost too calm, and the executives scoffed at the politeness they mistook for weakness. "What are you staring at?" one of them snapped. "Move before we ask the manager to throw you out." Armin did move here, but not before glancing at each of them with a quiet, unsettling patience. The server watched him go, confused by the man's calmness, apologizing until his words dissolved into whispers. Armin stepped outside into the cold air, letting the sting fade from his chest. He had always believed that how a person treated someone they thought was beneath them revealed who they truly were. And today, the executives from Mero Technologies had revealed everything. But the story didn't begin with the wine. The roots stretched deeper back to the boy Armin once was, a child of a single mother who cleaned diners late at night, who often came home with stains on her uniform that looked exactly like the wine on his shirt. A woman who had swallowed humiliation so her son could eat, whose hands had cracked under work but never under pressure. He remembered her once saying, "People who think they're above others never really rise, they just float on empty pride." Armin had risen and not on pride, but on the foundation of every hardship, every insult, every moment someone underestimated him. As he crossed the street to the building where the meeting would be held, he could smell the wine on his clothes. He didn't bother changing. Let them see what they had done. Let them recognize themselves in the stain. Inside the conference room, the executives stood when the board members entered. They were loud, confident, whispering about bonuses they already imagined. But when the chairperson announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, our acquiring partner has arrived," the room quieted. Every eye turned toward the door. And Armin walked in. At first, silence, then confusion, then sudden, unmistakable horror. The man whose shirt they had drenched with wine was the very person they had been boasting about impressing. The owner, the sole decision-maker, the man whose signature meant everything. The 3 executives slowly stood, faces drained of color. One tried to smile. Another attempted an apology that dissolved into stuttering. The third looked like he might faint. Armin took his seat with calm authority, laying the stained blazer neatly on the back of his chair. The meeting began, and no one dared breathe too loudly. The executive's earlier arrogance had evaporated, replaced by a desperate hope that he wouldn't mention the incident. He didn't, and not at first. He let the meeting proceed smoothly. He asked questions. He listened. He made notes. But he watched the 3 men carefully, studying not just their words, but their character or lack of it. Then, 2 hours in, when it came time to finalize the partnership conditions, Armin closed his folder and finally spoke the words that made the entire room lean forward. "Before I sign anything," he said calmly, "I want to discuss the culture of leadership here." The executive swallowed hard. He continued, "A company's value isn't measured only by profit or innovation. It's measured by how it treats people who can give it nothing in return." Today, in a restaurant across the street, I watched how some of your leaders treated a staff member who made a mistake. I also watched how they treated someone they assumed was unimportant. The room froze. One of the executives whispered, "Sir, a broken bar." "It was a misunderstanding." Armin raised a hand. "Number." It was a revelation. The CEO of Mero Technologies looked mortified. "Mr. Hale, please understand that those actions don't represent us." "I hope not," Armin replied, "because today I saw arrogance, disrespect, and entitlement. And I won't invest $600 million into a culture that destroys the people who serve it." Whispers erupted across the room. Panic rippled through the executives. Armin stood. "The deal is suspended, not forever but until your leadership reflects the values you claim to stand for. Remove toxicity from the top, or you will never rise from the bottom." He turned to leave but stopped at the door and looked back at the server incident's 3 culprits. "And one more thing," he said quietly but firmly. "Power doesn't come from position. It comes from character. And today, gentlemen, you showed none." He walked out, the wine stain still bright against his shirt, but somehow looking like a badge of honor instead of humiliation. Hours later, as he sat alone in his office, the server from the restaurant appeared in the doorway, nervous, holding a bag. He had come to return Armin's forgotten wallet. "I didn't know who you were," the server said shyly. "About a broken bar, how you handled a broken bar, I just wanted to thank you." Armin smiled. "No need. Just remember, one act of dignity weighs more than 1,000 acts of pride." A week later, Mero Technologies called back. The toxic executives were removed. New training programs were implemented. The culture was rebuilt. And only then did Armin sign the deal. Not because the company was perfected but because change, real change, had begun. And as the ink dried, Armin thought of his mother, of her words, and of the wine stain that started it all. Because sometimes life pours humiliation on you not to break you but to reveal who you truly are, and who the world truly is. And the world, it finally saw him, not because he owned a $600 million deal, but because he owned his character.